4th, 2022. We will start the meeting with chaplain prayer and pledges, but I want to make an announcement in case anyone is in the audience today who is here to make public comment on item 6C, which happens to be a short-term rental. We will not be discussing that today. It is being pulled from the agenda because the appropriate notices were not sent out by the city, so it cannot be discussed today. So just in case, if you want to leave after the prayer and pledges, know that 6C is being pulled and will not be discussed today. With that, we will move into our chaplain prayer and pledges, and we have today Police Chaplain Ralph Dawkins here.
Good morning, everyone. Today is the National Day of Prayer. Did you know that? Let's pray. Father, on this day declared to be the National Day of Prayer, we thank you for the opportunity to invoke prayer and your word into this gathering of city leaders, officials, and concerned citizens. Lord, your word declares that we should acknowledge you in all of our ways and you would direct our paths. You said that if we delight ourselves in you, that you would give us the desires of our heart. And then your word declares over in Jeremiah 29:11 that you already know the plans that you have for us, plans to prosper us and not for evil, plans that will give us a future and a hope. And we ask your blessings upon the people who have been called to lead this community in which we live, work, and pray. And so I lift up the mayor, her staff and assistants, the city council members, the city manager, and every department and person that is instrumental in leading and directing our city. I pray for the police chief and the entire police department, the sheriff's department, that they will continue to protect and serve the residents of our city. And I pray for the fire chief and the entire fire department and all first responders who serve our city. And lastly, I pray that you would bless our city with economic prosperity, that you may draw in and attract to our city industry, businesses, and corporations that will produce jobs and revenue and help us to grow and prosper. In Jesus' name, I pray. Let's pledge allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Chaplain Dawkins, do you want to know that there are some churches holding noon because it is a day of prayer? Are you aware of any of those that you might want to announce to the public? No, I do not.
Give about 4 speeches.
We have a lot of proclamations today, and so please be patient as we honor these organizations and their events. And today we're going to start with our SAISD, our Difference Makers Day. So all of those who are here today to celebrate the SAISD Difference Maker Day, please come forward. And please turn off all your cell phones.
I had turned it off.
Okay. San Angelo Independent School District educators and staff impact the future of San Angelo daily through their care for and dedication and commitment to the children of our city. Their impact happens from the moment a child steps on a bus, walks through the school door, is fed a nourishing breakfast, and throughout the day until the last bell and beyond. Educators and the entire SAISD team make a difference in each child's life, and with nearly 14,000 students, this is an incredible impact on our community. Today, we acknowledge the special commitment our SAISD educators and staff have on the well-being of our children. They provide a relevant and inspiring education, preparing future-ready graduates. These graduates may one day care for your loved ones as a nurse or doctor at a local hospital, address cybersecurity threats that impact our community, create beautiful artwork or music for others to enjoy, or go on to teach the next generation of San Angelans. At SAISD, they often say, "Our people make the difference." And today, we honor the San Angelo difference makers, those who inspire and prepare our students and support their hopes and dreams. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, and together with San Angelo Independent School District, do hereby recognize May 5th, 2023 as SAISD Difference Maker Day, and thank all SAISD educators and staff for their dedicated service to our students and families, and urge all citizens to acknowledge the occasion of this special day.
Thank you, Mayor Gunter. Also, thank you, council members. And I want to first tell me something good, and let me tell you something good. One difference maker that we have here today are the officers that were present as we entered the building. I have flown recently, and I can tell you that the officers in this building are much more efficient than airlines getting a large number of people through the gate in time. So thank you for being difference makers too. So Mayor Gunter, you know, we are just pleased and honored to be here this morning. I think it's Difference Maker Day, and it's a time to celebrate all of our educators. You know, we all chose this profession because of a difference maker in our life. One of my former professors, Dr. Rick Rigsby, always said, make an impact, not just an impression. And our difference makers do that. Our local educators are phenomenal in what they do to serve our families in this community. You know, difference makers for me, and our board and team have heard this story, but one of the reasons that I chose this profession is Coach Horace Schaefer, a 6th grade PE coach, who through his health and wellness unit helped my father quit smoking. He said, "Henry, Carl's really concerned about you smoking." My dad threw his cigarette on the floor that day and never smoked again for 50 years. Those are difference makers. I also remember my Algebra 2 teacher, Mrs. Jones, who I considered the meanest person on the planet. However, she came to my out-of-town basketball game, and I said, "What are you doing here? Is your grandson playing?" And she said, "No, I'm here for you. I'm going to make a sandwich for you tomorrow at lunch, and you're going to come in, and we're going to review quadratic equations and vectors." Those are difference makers. And here locally in San Angelo, there are so many examples. Let me give you an example of a difference maker that doesn't have to be in a classroom, but that can be in a system. That difference maker is Max Parker behind me, our board president. Max Parker, I'm trying not to get emotional, Max Parker has served for 18 and a half years as a volunteer in our school system to help communities and families. 18 and a half years as a volunteer. He's done an incredible job of working through some challenging and difficult and tough subjects and challenges that come through our school system. And the whole time he adheres to values in our community. And he's helped shape those values, help mend those values so that people can feel good about our public school system. So it's difference makers like Max Parker, our other board members, Amy Mazzell Flint is here today, Taylor Kingman is here. Those are difference makers. We also have difference makers that are in the classrooms and in the counseling positions and in principal positions. We've had stories here in my 14 years here where this is a recent story where we have a teacher that a student felt they didn't want to wear glasses. So that teacher, out of her own pocket, purchased through their optometrist, they purchased contact lens and had it delivered via Amazon, a year's supply of contact lens on their front doorstep for the student. Those things you don't hear about. We have difference makers. We have principals that realized a family didn't have beds, and they went out and purchased beds for that family. These are people that make a difference in our community. I don't know why I'm getting so emotional up here.
You might also
Yeah.
want to share with everyone the event Tuesday night, what it was about, because it definitely was about difference makers and a dramatic change in a school, and they've been honored, and I think the public
Sure.
should know that.
Sure. Our schools to watch at Lincoln Middle School, they'll be honored in Washington, D.C. You talking about a change. They've made a tremendous change academically and in their culture. And they truly are, they're one of only 66 schools in the nation that are honored, and they'll be honored in Washington, D.C. This week too. So we've got a ton of difference makers all over the place. We've got principals that are purchasing beds for families. We've got counselors that they don't get the recognition because the saves that our counselors make aren't published in the newspaper. They make saves that aren't published in the newspaper. They talk kids down from not harming themselves. They talk kids into staying in school, but you don't hear about those because they're never published. So our counselors do an incredible job too of making an impact throughout our system. So I just want to say thank you to all of our elected officials. Thank you to our educators, our teachers, those serious difference makers that impact the lives of students. And thank you to our first responders and elected officials who, through their time and commitment, try to make San Angelo better. And it's not easy, but they do an incredible job. So I just want to say thank you. I probably am a little emotional because my mother passed away, and I recently attended her funeral. So forgive this sappiness, and I will let you carry on throughout the day. So thank you.
Give a round of applause to our Anybody else like to speak? Yeah, I forgot. Yeah. Come on. Our next proclamation is Community Action Month, so I know there's individuals here in the audience today to receive this proclamation, so please come forward. Well, half of the audience is for here. Good job. Come on around here because we're going to do it anyway, Mike, so come on, because you're probably going to speak at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
I won't take us as much time as
Established as part of Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty through the 1964 Economic Opportunity Act, community action agencies have provided essential services to address and alleviate the causes and conditions of poverty for our community's most vulnerable neighbors. Founded in 1966, Concho Valley Community Action Agency has a nearly 6-decade history of providing assistance and promoting self-sufficiency for citizens of limited income. Concho Valley Community Action Agency has been serving our communities through impactful services such as access to safe and affordable housing, financial empowerment, and education, reducing energy burden with energy savings and utility payment programs, educational support, advocacy, and contributing to the economic vitality of the Concho Valley. Concho Valley Community Action Agency makes essential contributions to individuals and families across the Concho Valley by stabilizing and strengthening communities in times of extraordinary economic challenges, natural and human disasters, and exceptional health crises. With the mission of helping people and changing lives, Concho Valley Community Action Agency has helped to make our region a better place to live, work, and play. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. They care about the entire community, and they are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Community Action Month in San Angelo, Texas, and urge all citizens to support their continued efforts. Together, we can work towards a brighter future for our great city. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council. Thank you for recognizing the work of community action today. CVCAA is working on the front lines of combating poverty, not only in San Angelo, but in all corners of our service area's 14 counties. With over 30 agencies in Texas and more than 1,000 across the country, community action agencies stand at the ready to help those who work hard to take care of themselves and their families, but just need a little extra help to get the dollars to stretch to the end of the month. We are the safeguard for citizens whose income hasn't kept up with the rising costs of housing, utilities, and food. We are there for those who might just need a little bit of help because they lost their job due to an unexpected illness. We work to keep households stabilized and provide resources and guidance to move our neighbors closer to self-sufficiency. Sergeant Shriver, the architect of community action, once said, "What can change the world today is the same thing that has changed it in the past, an idea, and the service of dedicated, committed individuals to that idea." CVCAA is committed to the idea that communities should provide opportunities to every citizen regardless of their socioeconomic status. Together with the city, our neighbors, and other partner service agencies, we can fulfill our mission of helping people and changing lives. Thank you.
Our next proclamation is for Mental Health Awareness Month. So those of you who are in the audience to receive this proclamation, please come forward. Are you by yourself today? I was going to say that never happens. Okay, good. Come on. Since 1949, the month of May has been recognized as Mental Health Awareness Month to raise awareness about the importance of mental health care and its impact on the well-being of everyone in the community. In Texas, 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health challenge each year. Mental health is essential to the health and wellness of each person in San Angelo, and with the proper support and resources, those with mental illness can recover and lead productive and positive lives. All citizens experience times of stress and difficulty in their lives, and they should feel empowered to seek help and resources to manage these times. The rate of depression across the country has more than tripled compared to rates in 2019, and people need support now more than ever. Every person has an important role to play in supporting those with mental illnesses by learning warning signs, talking to affected loved ones, and fighting negative stereotypes that come with mental health diagnosis. In collaboration with MHMR, Concho Valley, the local mental health authority, or LMHA, we dedicate May to raising awareness about mental health and working to diminish the stigma that surrounds it. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Mental Health Awareness Month in San Angelo, Texas, and encourage everyone to treat those with mental illnesses with compassion and to create an open and honest dialogue about mental health with family and friends. Together, we can help everyone get the mental health support needed to get well.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council. HMR couldn't do what we do without the city's support, and what we do is try to move people into recovery. Mental health is a very, as in the proclamation, important subject right now in our country, in our community, and what we do is try to help people move to recovery, and that's through clinical supports, case management, psychiatric services, counseling, and a whole array of supports for folks in the community, and also addressing crisis supports for folks in our community. But we couldn't do it without everybody. And you know, we've had SAISD here. They're a great partner. We have to work with, and we love working with our local school districts and Community Action Agency, who helps us with housing, the city, who helps us not only with funding, but also with housing supports for our folks, because another big piece of what we do is connect people and get people into housing, because you can't address your mental illness unless you have a place to, a supported place to live. So there's a whole lot of things we do, and we greatly appreciate the support. One of the things we have is the San Angelo Clubhouse, and it's a great program. I'm going to let Amy, she gets to double dip today with the SASD and with us. Let her talk a little bit. But one last thing I do, within the month of May, Mental Health Awareness is a week of children's awareness. And this Friday is we're having a children's fair. It's over at our Oaks Family Youth Guidance Center. It's right across from the Fine Arts Museum, 4:30 to 6:30. Kids, anybody is welcome to attend, and we sure would like to see a whole lot of folks come in. Lots of activities, lots of fun games, things to do. So thank you very much. I'm going to let Amy say a couple of things.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Mazel-Flint from the San Angelo Clubhouse, and I have some members and staff with me today. And I was excited about this proclamation being today, and then I was even more excited when I realized that the school district was having their proclamation today because of the intersection of between mental health and education especially in our country right now. And so I thought it was really important that the two combined today to honor our educators and honor Mental Health Awareness Month. Just a couple quick things. The first thing is we call mental health awareness or mental health or mental illness a no casserole disease. And that's because if you know somebody who is diagnosed with cancer or diagnosed with diabetes, the first thing you do is set up a meal train, right? Bring them casseroles, help them clean their house, mow their lawn for them. And if you find out that somebody in your life has schizophrenia or bipolar or severe anxiety and they can't get out of bed, people tend to kind of judge and ask, why can't they get out of bed and go to work like everybody else? And so MHMR and the Clubhouse and all the organizations in San Angelo and around our country that do all that work for people living with mental illness try to break that stigma and make people realize that mental illness is an illness just like any other. And so please keep that in mind as we enter Mental Health Awareness Month. And then just one more thing, we have our 0.5K, the race that anyone can finish on Saturday, May the 6th. It starts at Celebration Bridge at 10 o'clock, registration's at 9. We'd love to see you there. Thank you.
I see a lot of new faces in the audience right now, and if you weren't here when the meeting started, we announced that we would not be discussing 6C, the short-term rental. So if you're here to voice an opinion on that. No, we're not going to take that up today. The appropriate notices were not sent out, and so we can't discuss it today. So if you are here for that, no, we're not going to discuss it. We are now going to move into Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. Ponderosa MC, as members of the Region 5 Texas Council of Clubs and Independents. Oh, come on forward. I got lost there for a minute. Ponderosa's MC as members of the Region 5 Texas Council of Clubs and Independents in collaboration and support of the National Safety Council, TxDOT, and local motorcycle enthusiasts would like to remind all road users that the month of May marks a national recognition of Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. Motorists are reminded of the frequency of higher seasonal returns of motorcycle enthusiasts to Texas's roadways during this month. Due to their smaller size, motorcycles may easily be overlooked in regular traffic flow. Motorists are encouraged to always be aware of motorcycles on all roadways, when approaching intersections, when performing lane changes, as well as whenever motorists near or pass other vehicles, including motorcycles. Motorcyclists are encouraged to operate their motorcycles in a defensive manner and within the rules of the road. Motorcyclists ask that as motorists drive, they take a few extra seconds to look twice for motorcycles, both during Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month and throughout the year to promote overall safety. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month in San Angelo, Texas, and encourage everyone to share the road safely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, council members. My name is Sarah Gypsy Serna, and on behalf of motorcyclists in our community and all across the country, I want to thank you for the opportunity this morning to share with you one of the most important days I look forward to every year by receiving this proclamation recognizing that May is National Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. For the last several years, I've had the great honor and privilege to stand here and remind our local community that those of us who choose to ride motorcycles are just like everyone else. We all want to return home safely from any destination we set out upon, whether it be to work, school, appointments, errands, trips, or for wherever we've set out. We always want to return home safely. We are all daughters, sons, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, uncles, friends to others. And we all want what everyone wants, to make it safely back to our families and homes at the end of our ride. This is a consideration that so many who choose to drive in a four-wheeled vehicle or more often take for granted, but we cannot. We who consider ourselves to be brothers and sisters of the roads respect each other and all other vehicles on the roads because we've watched so many of us be injured or even lose their lives every year due to senseless and preventable actions that could have easily been avoided. As we take this time to remind everyone, I ask that you take a few seconds just to scan the room. In that same amount of time, that's how long it takes for you to look twice for us. Remember, there's a life riding on every motorcycle on the road, and those lives are surely loved by others, just as you are loved by your family and friends. So we ask of you, please, look twice for us, because it could mean the difference between life and death for motorcyclists on the road. Thank you.
Our last proclamation is Stop the Bleed Month. So all of you who are here today for this proclamation, please come forward. Stop the Bleed is a nationwide campaign to empower individuals to act quickly and save lives. No matter how rapid the arrival of professional emergency responders, bystanders will always be the first on scene. Victims can die from blood loss within minutes. Therefore, it is important to recognize life-threatening bleeding and to intervene effectively. The public must learn proper bleeding control techniques, including how to use their hands, dressings, and tourniquets. Victims can die quickly from uncontrolled bleeding in under a minute in some circumstances. StopTheBleedTexas.org and CVRAC.org have resources that can help prepare you in the event you are a witness to one of those unspeakable events. Trauma services at Shannon Medical Center, AirMed, SAFD, DPS, SAPD, Tom Green County Sheriff's Office, Staked Plains Emergency Nurses Association, and the Concho Valley Regional Advisory Council all provide Stop the Bleed training in San Angelo and the surrounding areas of the Concho Valley. Free training is offered and can be set up by emailing trauma@shannonhealth.org. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Stop the Bleed Month in San Angelo, Texas, and urge all citizens to be aware of the significant importance that bleeding control practices play in saving lives in our community.
We just want to say thank you so much for the proclamation. I am going to pass it to Mason Matthews because he does tons of training for the city of San Angelo. But this is a huge injury prevention push for all the agencies that were listed, not only in the month of May, but throughout the entire year because of its importance.
So, this is about building a resiliency within our community. And, when you think of first responders, people think of professional first responders, PD and fire and EMS. But really, this is about the bystanders, like the proclamation said. When these injuries happen, Stop the Bleed, the entire campaign was built out of, we live in a world now where violence happens and intentional violence happens. And the reality is after that violence happens, people are going to be hurt. But it's not just violence. There's accidents. We have accidents every day all over San Angelo, all over our region. So through Concho Valley Regional Advisory Council, all of the EMS and hospital agencies, we go out and we teach these classes. We train over 1,000 people a year. We teach these classes in schools, in churches, in businesses, in bunco groups. We teach it right here at the city. So all city employees, City of San Angelo employees, are trained in Stop the Bleed, and I routinely teach new hire employees. There's a lot of, not only do you have a lot of officers and EMS and fire walking around with tourniquets in their pockets, there's a lot of citizens now walking around with tourniquets in their pockets. That's the whole point of this, is when the injury happens, the number one cause of preventable death after injury is bleeding. And the only thing more tragic than a death is a death that could have been prevented. So that's the whole point of Stop the Bleed. Reach out to us for a class. We'd love to come and train us and build a resilient community so we're all safer. So.
Bunko speech.
What? Is it ringing?
It was.
But it's on silent.
It is now.
Oh.
Thought that was the highlight of my
Wouldn't
day.
you know?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if they got that on film, but I need to save that.
How to get rid of it. How to get rid of this.
Close your screen.
All right, we will now move into public comment. So issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Do we have individuals in the audience who would like to offer public comment? Come forward, Charlotte.
Good morning. Charlotte Anderson, Keep San Angelo Beautiful. And we just wanted to give you a brief recap of our Don't Mess with Texas Trash Off, which was April 1st. We had approximately 175 participants, 33 businesses and organizations, 525 volunteer hours at a value of right at $16,000 in labor to the community. Just so excited about that number. 210 bags of trash were collected, 2,700 pounds. The most interesting item was a birthday cake. We found pretty much a whole birthday cake with a couple of slices out, a few ants and bugs. And we actually had a birthday at our event as well, so we sang. Several members of the community joined us. Again, Harry was with us, and we sure appreciate that. Mr. Thomas joining us. Just a phenomenal, remarkable event, great engagement. This event had about a 300% increase over our last Don't Mess with Texas Trash Off. So fantastic event. And then would also like to remind you of our household hazardous waste that is this Saturday, May the 6th. You can drive through from 8 to about 11:30. If you're interested in volunteer, would love to have you join us. We have a lot of different stations and activities that we could use help with, and would appreciate that. And lastly, we were just notified that we received the Keep Texas Beautiful, Beautify Texas Award for public education and awareness. So we're very, very proud of that. We competed with over 300 Keep Texas Beautiful affiliates, and different organizations within the state of Texas could apply for this award. So we're real proud of that. We're continuing our work and excited to represent City Council, Mayor. We appreciate all of your support and all the things we do to keep San Angelo beautiful. And we've included with you some more pollinator packs for our monarchs, and there is a laundry detergent sheet pack. It's a sample, so you don't have to buy your laundry detergent in a plastic jug anymore. You just put a sheet in with your wash. It's all biodegradable. I did give you a scented one, but they come in no scents if you have allergies, but just a great way to rethink, reimagine how we do our laundry.
Have one that comes with common sense?
We're working on that.
Charlotte, remind the public the, I guess, more common items that you will be accepting this coming Saturday.
Yes, sir. So your first stop will be with Ella from Ella Saves the Oceans. She takes plastic bags, and actually she's taking all forms of plastic wrap. She's working on a project with Nettrex. If she can collect 500 pounds of plastics, so if you've got like a bird seed plastic bag or a dog food bag that's plastic or your cereal plastic, she can take all of that at this event. She's going to get a bench that's recycled, made out of recycled plastic that we will put in the community somewhere. So she's real excited, and she's always reached her goal and broken her world record at our events. So plastics for Ella, we'll be shredding documents, up to 4 boxes of shredded documents. We'll take cardboard, we'll take car batteries, electronics. We will have an oil station, so you can bring your oil. And then, of course, our largest collection is of paints. We get about 90% of paint buckets. I would encourage you, if you just have a little bit of paint, take the lid off, let it dry out. That can go to the landfill in your regular trash, but if you have a larger quantity, we'd be more than happy to take that. So we've got pesticides, herbicides, any type of oil or latex, and it can be spray paints or in the cans, pool chemicals, batteries, oil filters, peroxide, any type of corrosive liquids, things that we will not take. We will not take any business, agriculture, or chemical waste, no sharps, no meds, no ammunition, no explosives, no trailers, and at this event, we will have no tires. So no tires at this event. We'll see tires in November. November 11th, we'll be doing tires.
When you say electronic, Charlotte, any electronic item?
Yes. So if you've got a keyboard, if you have a flat screen monitor, cannot take those big CRT monitors. But other than that, we're taking any type of electronics. If you got a little CPU tower, we'll be taking that. Big Country Recycling will be on hand to take the electronics. So we've got a great host of vendors that are helping us out this year and providing services at no cost. And then our vendor comes from San Antonio, which takes the majority of the budget. So we're really happy to see them. And it looks like on the weather report, our Saturday just may be clear. I think it'll start out really cool and breezy in the morning and wrap up with a fantastic day about noon.
Thank you.
Oh, you're sure
Thank you.
welcome.
Anybody else with public comment today? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Public comment is now closed. We will move into the consent agenda. I will ask if there's any items that we would like to pull for further discussion. And so I'm going to start with Larry. Larry, do you have an item you'd like to pull?
Yes, ma'am. Item E.
Item E will be pulled. Karen?
G.
And G will be pulled. Lucy?
F.
F. Harry?
No, ma'am.
Tom?
I am good.
Tommy?
No, ma'am.
With that, we will I would like a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, C, D, H, and I. May I have that motion? So moved by Lucy, second.
Karen.
Karen. Seconded by Tom. Any public comment concerning those items on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving those items, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We will now move into item E, consider a resolution finding that AEP Texas Incorporated's application to amend its distribution cost recovery factors to increase distribution rates within the city should be denied, and authorizing the city to participate with other cities served by AEP to hire legal counsel with expenses to be reimbursed by AEP. Teresa?
Yes, did you have a specific question, Councilman Miller?
Yes, the one I discussed with you concerning our obligations if the suit fails.
Okay, these suits are a little bit different. It's part of the rate-making process, so they file for rate increases, and the cities have an ability to deny that increase, and then it goes to a hearing where they present the information to the cities, and we join with other cities and hire legal counsel jointly to review those increases. And then generally what happens, I think it's happened every time in my entire career, is there's a settlement on what our actual costs that they can be reimbursed for and what they can't, and so the amount that they're requesting is less than what they initially request. I believe it's like $3.90 that they're requesting to increase everybody's residential rates. So the process will happen that if you approve this resolution, we will join with these other cities to have that evaluated and make sure that those rates are justified.
What was that percent increase?
Oh, I don't remember the percent. I'm not sure that that information was provided to me, but let me look.
And it's $3.90 per kilowatt?
No,
Or
per customer bill. That's what they
$3.90
anticipate per month.
customer?
Per residential customer per month, yes. But I don't see the percent increase on here. It's, they're asking for $39.7 million, which is approximately a $1.63 increase from the rates approved in the company's recent DCRF case. And then there's another increase where they want to get $30.67 million, which would be an additional $1.30 increase to the average customer's bill. So it's two different increases they're asking for. We're going to be objecting to both of them.
And when was the last time we had a rate increase request from them?
We get one basically every year, and we do this basically every year. They've been more frequent both with AEP and Atmos after the winter storm. They're trying to recover some of those costs, and that's why people's bills and these fees on their bills have been going up. I should further note that under the statute as it is today, we don't pay the attorney's costs. That is paid by the company when these cases are pursued. So there's no impact to the city other than potentially having less of an increase on our customers. Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome.
How would that impact the city budget?
Well, the only information we have is the residential customers. I can find out and send you information about whether or not the kind of class of customer that we are, if that would have an impact as well. But maybe Tina has information about that, but I do not.
We haven't seen a commercial increase.
I have not, but again, Tina may have seen that. I know that throughout since the winter storm, there have been increases in the commercial rates as well, but I'm not sure what they are.
Any other questions, Larry? Or comments, Lucy? Go ahead.
I have a question, Teresa. So when this goes to find out which one they're going to go with, or how long is that going to take, or when will we find out?
It takes, I think, generally about 90 days for that process to happen. And sometimes we have to take action approving the settlement agreement. I believe that we do that every time, so there would be another thing that would come to you. And they're related, and sometimes people forget. They feel like it's two increases, but it's really not. It's one that we denied and then one that we're approving through a settlement. Yes.
Any other questions for Teresa on this item? And then, Larry, you want to make a motion for approval?
Motion for approval.
Is there a second? Second by Lucy. Any public comment concerning this item? Seeing none, we will take a vote. All those in favor of approving item E, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. We will move into item F, public hearing and possible adoption of a resolution authorizing a professional services contract with Eland and Bonin, PC, Barron and Budd, and Kosick, Semick, Parciola, and Taylor. Now, those are interesting names. To represent the city of San Angelo in litigation to pursue claims for monetary damages, declaratory relief, and other legal remedies against manufacturers, designers, marketers, distributors, formulators, promoters, and/or sellers of firefighting foam products and/or other products containing PFAS, including PFOS and PFOA, and related compounds contingent upon an approval of the fee contract by the Office of Attorney General pursuant to the Texas Government Code Section 2254, Subchapter C. Teresa, you're on.
Do you have a specific question?
Teresa, all I wanted was if you could please explain this in layman's terms, what it all means.
Well, you got to repeat those names.
Yeah. I'm not gonna try to attempt to say what those chemical names are, but PFAs and PFOSs are what are people here are referred to as forever chemicals. They were in firefighting foams that were used by our fire department and fire departments across the country until 2016. At that time, they stopped using this particular PFA, and they have a different kind of foam that they use. But since they're forever chemicals, they contaminate the environment and they kind of linger and they go into groundwater, into surface water. And so we were contacted actually by folks seeing if we were interested in pursuing this litigation. What's happened at the EPA level is these were always like constituents of concern before, but recently, I think it was March, the end of last month, or end of March, the EPA came out and said probably in December they're going to start setting actual limits for cities to start testing for of these chemicals, and they'll require remediation if we exceed those levels of these chemicals, which would come to a cost. These cannot be removed from particularly water with our traditional treatment methods. So this litigation is nationwide. There's a big case in South Carolina. What we're anticipating is that they will test our soils and our waters to see if we have an issue, and if we do, then we will join the litigation by filing suit first in Texas, and then that lawsuit would be removed to a multi-jurisdictional lawsuit that's taking place in South Carolina. And what we're hoping to recover is the cost of remediation that we're going to be paying if these substances are identified in San Angelo.
have we not already had soil samples tested here in San Angelo that showed high levels of these?
City of San Angelo has not had testing done. I know there are other entities in San Angelo that also had firefighting foams on their facilities that did show this level of contamination. The areas we're looking for, or we're going to be looking at initially, are at the airport where a lot of firefighting training and activities take place, because that's one of those areas where those foams are prevalent, as well as by our old training facility, which of course is right by the river, which is why we added groundwater and surface water to the litigation to make sure if our water has been contaminated, we can recoup some of those costs as well.
Further questions for Teresa or comments that you'd like to make concerning this item? Okay, Lucy, you want to make a
Yes, ma'am.
motion?
I move to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Karen. All right, so any public comment concerning these items? All right, seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving item F, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved, 7-0. We will now move into item G, second reading of an ordinance to rezone property from the Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District to a planned development, PD 23-02, to allow a base zoning of general commercial, also allowing a welding shop and outdoor storage being 4.651 acres located at 2025 East Houston Hart Expressway. Karen, I think you asked to pull this one.
I did, and I would just like to ask Mr. James to review with us quickly that we are seeing the changes that we requested. That's what we're approving. Change, actually an amendment to the ordinance that leads us to zone that area general commercial so that things are heard on a case-by-case basis. Can you review, please?
Yes, that's correct. That's what was approved last time. The caption reads the way it does because that was the applicant's original request. So technically, you could change your mind and vote on what the applicant requested. So if we had reworded this to say just general commercial, it would have precluded that opportunity. But yes, unless you change your minds, you would be voting on the general commercial that was approved on first reading.
Thank you.
I just want to make note that there have been several people who have responded to me concerning this item, and specifically about the huge need for welding shops in the city of San Angelo. It's one of those areas that has become a great need, and as well as other things like plumbing, et cetera. But people are very concerned because they don't have available welding shops that are greatly needed in a manufacturing city, a city that has a lot of manufacturing facilities. So I just want to put that out there, that has become an issue for many people. And I understand that based off of what was decided here and talked about, a welding shop cannot be put there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
For clarity, because there was a little bit of confusion about the caption, the report to council does identify which of the two options is the one that is approved and moving forward. So if anybody's curious about that, that's where you go to look to find out what was approved and what's moving forward.
All right, so with that, we will take a vote on item G, second reading of an, did I just read it already? So I'm not going to reread it again. Okay, so, but I do need a motion.
So moved.
A
Move
motion
to
by
approve.
Karen, a second by Lucy. Any public comment on this item, say aye. No, come forward. With none, we'll take a vote. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
It's passed 5-2. H is second, oh no, that's it. So we have completed the consent agenda, I believe, and approved all of the items that were pulled for further discussion. And we will move forward now into our regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are exempt from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. The first item is A, consider accepting the city's fiscal year 2022 annual comprehensive financial report and single audit. And we have Gayla Thornton, I believe, here, and Tina Diersky.
Tina Diersky, Director of Finance. I'm just going to introduce
Gayla Thornton from Armstrong Backus and Company. She's a partner there that governs our audit. We've just finished up this months-long process, and so we're happy to bring our final financial reports to you for review today.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to be here again this year. We are always thrilled to work with you. We are bringing to you today the annual comprehensive financial report, kind of a summary of what we discussed at Audit Committee last week. This year, we performed the audit of your financial statements, single audit, and the passenger facility charge audit. The purpose of our audit is to express opinions on the city's financial statements in accordance with the U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Standards and government auditing standards. Those standards require that we plan and perform to obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. We don't look at everything. We look at the big stuff. We look at riskier areas. We look at areas that have a lot of activity and really focus on those areas to make sure that your financial statements wouldn't have any material misstatements in them and that they're reasonably stated. Within this audit, we present the primary government being the City of San Angelo, and then there's a column in your financial statements for your discretely presented component unit, which is COSA DC. We determine major funds, which are the ones with the largest balances, largest amount of activity. That would include the general fund, your intergovernmental fund, capital improvement fund, debt service fund, water fund, and sewer fund. And then all of the other funds within the city are combined into what we call aggregate other presentation, and they're all reported together. But towards the back of the report, those are all reported separately in combining schedules that then tie to the beginning of the report. So you can drill down and find the activity you want for those funds that are aggregate, but we do our focus on those that are listed there. So what you have engaged us to do is provide opinions on whether these are reasonable, and our opinion states that they are reasonable, so we are issuing a clean opinion this year on your financial statements.
When you say this year, what happened last year?
It was a clean opinion. Every year we've been engaged, you've had a clean opinion. Yes, ma'am. Some significant events to highlight for fiscal year 2022. We had a new lease standard that was issued by the Government Accounting Standards Board, which changes how leases are accounted for in your financial statements. Before, you only had operating leases, which were expensed each month as they were paid, and now those leases are reported as right-of-use assets and then related liabilities for the future payments of those leases for that lease term. So that's a difference with that implementation this year. If you were to compare last year's report to this year's, they would look different because of that. There was $31 million in infrastructure and construction and process that was done throughout the year. There was a lot of activity on the Hickory expansion project. And then when I get into the numbers in a second, you're going to see that you had a very positive net position increase for the year. One of the primary reasons for that was your other post-employment benefits, which is your retiree health benefits, had a significant decrease this year because there was a change in interest rate. So that changed the assumptions going into that actuarially determined number and caused your expenses to decrease, so you have a very positive effect for the year.
So are you saying with increased interest costs this year, we will see the opposite happen when it's audited next year? I don't know if the impact was because we had low interest rates and interest rates have increased. So what do we anticipate for next year?
Ironically, the higher the interest rate is for this actuarial calculation, the more that liability decreases. It actually has the opposite effect. So in summary, with your government taken as a whole, this includes all of your funds, both general funds, water, sewer, all of them. You had total assets of $740 million. Your total liabilities for the year were $383 million, which ended in a net position of $304 million. That net position increased almost 45 million for the year, so a very positive increase. But a lot of that did have to do with that OPEB decrease. Just to kind of show you how your net position has trended over the past 4 years, it has steadily increased, which is very positive. And then the change in net position, although slightly lower than last year, is still very strong for the year. In addition to auditing the funds, we also have to do an audit of your federal awards, which is called a single audit. And that's required when you spend more than $750,000 in a year of federal funds. This year you spent right at $8.1 million. So that was required. And we, through a single audit, have to test your internal control and compliance over those federal awards. We issue a separate report on that, and there were no compliance findings this year, so your grants were accounted for properly. And then this is just a chart to show how your federal awards have been spent the past 5 years. So last year you were at 14 million because a lot of the COVID funds came in, but this year you were at 8 million, which is still significantly higher than a normal year.
And that's also because of COVID funds.
There are some remaining COVID funds this year, yes, ma'am. And that is our presentation, if you have any questions.
I'm going to start with Larry. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, ma'am.
Karen? Lucy?
No, ma'am.
Harry?
No, ma'am.
Tom?
So let me just throw this out. If you do have something that throws a flag up, what's your process?
We meet with staff first, and then every year before we issue our final audit, we meet with the audit committee, and it's discussed there.
And Tommy? With that, do we need is this just a presentation, so I don't need to have a vote on this, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, it is accepting the fiscal audit, so there will need to be a vote.
May I have a motion to accept this audit as presented?
So moved.
Motion has been made by Tommy, seconded by Larry. Any public comment on this particular audit and the information attached? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is passed 7-0. Thank you. Item B, discuss and consider adoption of an ordinance authorizing the issuance and the sale of City of San Angelo, Texas Waterworks and Sewer System Improvement Revenue Bonds, Series 2023, establishing procedures for the sale and delivery of the bonds, providing for the security for and the payment of such bonds, and authorizing and enacting other matters and provisions relating to the subject. Tina, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina Deersky, Director of Finance. You have seen this before about, I think it was February of last year. We came to you with a reimbursement resolution. When we received the bids for the Hickory expansion project, they came in higher than expected because there were some components that needed to be added. And so at that point in time, we knew that we needed an additional up to $14 million, which you approved at that time. The state has taken this long to get this before the Texas Water Development Board, but they have finally approved this debt issue to the city at a low interest rate loan. The term will be 22 years, the interest rate at 2.345%.
The question I have is, there have been several articles written about an additional $5 million, I believe. Is that incorporated in this $13.4 million? Did the additional $5 million that the Water Development Board approved for the City of San Angelo, is that included in the $13 million?
I'm not aware of a $5 million number. I have seen this $13.4 million posted, so I'm not familiar with a $5 million number. Not sure.
So when we approve this, we're approving $13.415 million.
Yes, ma'am.
For these terms of years and this interest rate. And it pays for all the expansion of the well fields at the Hickory Aquifer. Is that correct?
Yes, in addition to a previous debt issue, those two combined will pay for the expansion at the Hickory.
And what are those two combined?
I think the first one, let me see if I have that information here. I think it was 56 million, but if Andy's here, he probably.
So this is the additions to 13.4. So it's the combined. So what's the combined total? Come on. So it's 56 million now plus 13 million for.
That's what I thought, yes.
Any comments, questions?
A lot of money, but we got to do it.
And based off of how we pay back this money, explain how it gets paid back.
It's paid from their capital projects fund. The debt service payments are made out of the debt service fund, but the capital project supports it through the rates, right, through the sewer rates, or the water rates, pardon me. So, and this bid has already been awarded. Again, because of that reimbursement resolution, we were able to use pay-as-you-go capital funds, and now that we've received this loan, we'll basically reimburse the water fund for that amount, so.
So we don't have to discuss higher water or sewer rates in order to approve this and pay for this.
Not at this time, no.
With that, may I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
So moved by Tommy. Second. Second by Lucy. Any public comment? No further public comment. We'll take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Tina, or maybe Shane, you're here. Can you tell us where we are at on this process of the expansion of the well fields? Have we started, not started, waiting for this approval? Where are we?
You do that just to get the deer in the headlights look at a Shane.
He's been waiting, so I knew he needed to be here for some question.
Got his hair cut and everything.
I got a haircut and everything today. So, no, the project's moving along well. We awarded it about a year ago, and so everything's moving along well. They're working on actually drilling the last well as we speak, so the rest of the wells have already been drilled, cased, and all but the one they're drilling now and one other one have been pump tested, so that project's moving along really well out at the expansion. And the other part of this was also the 2 nuclear wells at the water treatment plant, and they're probably within, I'm going to say 60 to 90 days of having the 2 clear wells actually built. And so at that point, it'll be the piping and then the upgrades to the Hickory process plant. So it's moving along well. It's right on time. It's on schedule.
Okay. And the length of the, go ahead.
Oh, Mayor, I just wanted to ask a question. Was that 4 wells that were?
5 wells.
5 wells.
Yep, 5 wells is what we expanded. And so, again, from completion time, we should be through in July with the well field, or with drilling all of the wells, and then we'll move in from there to do the tie-in the new wells into the system to get them to our pump station, and that will be finished up in late fall, early winter, and then everything should be totally tied up and completed around this time next year. So everything should be 100% done.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the last item, which is item D on the regular agenda. Consider ratifying COSA DC authorization for the board president to negotiate and execute Amendment 1 to the 2023 COSA DC Chamber of Commerce Professional Services Performance Agreement with ratification by City Council. Michael, you're on.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Michael Dane, Interim Economic Development Director. Bringing back to you the proposed amendment to the COSA DC Chamber Agreement for Economic Development Recruiting. Revised scope of services and a proposed change in the term are what's included, so we'll go through those, just a brief review of the change in the scope of services. Requirements would be to maintain a cross-branded website, provide economic development marketing and recruitment, evaluate local business eligibility for BREP, that's BREP oriented. Coordinate responses to prospect leads. We get leads from the state, they get leads from the state, and they're going to be the local lead group to follow up on those leads. That's unfortunate wording, I apologize. Lead response. Number 5, maintain current community information, prospects and Site selectors want to know about your community. They're gonna handle that for us. 6, provide background information for use by staff, the COSA-DC board, and the city council as we consider how to move forward or whether or not to move forward in the case of the board and council on a project. They will help gather that information. Item 7, provide COSA-DC staff with summary of job creation, taxable value, and other economic indices. Help us evaluate, give us the information we need to evaluate return on investment. Number 8, participation in COSA-DC meetings. So have somebody there at the meetings. That's really it for the scope of services. We tried to boil that down. We actually wanted fewer items than that, and we got down to fewer than we had, but we didn't quite get down to 4 or 5. But they do a lot. Term. What the board proposed was a 3-year extension at the end of the current term, which expires in approximately 7 months, almost 7 months, a little over 6 months. And then beyond that, 2 optional 1-year extensions, total of 5 years. We've heard that before, talked about 5 years. But that first extension would be a 3-year extension at the end of this calendar year. The board's consensus was and remains that a multi-year agreement is preferable to a year-to-year approach. I think that multi-year stability, that multi-year mindset is the best way to go, and that's why they made that recommendation. They believe that commitment to economic development is consistent with council's established priorities. Remember, economic development, planes, trains, and automobiles. And economic development is one of your top priorities, and I expect and hope that it will be as we go through the next meeting this month. And the board allowed this to come forward even though they were uncertain about its prospects for approval, because they believe that approach is the best. It communicates to local folks and to outsiders that economic development is a priority, and it communicates stability. And prospects want both. They want priority and stability. And of course, it aligns with council objectives. And so on that basis, the COSA-DC board's recommendation is to approve this as presented with an automatic 3-year extension at the end of the year, with 2 optional 1-year extensions thereafter. And my recommendation is that you approve it as presented. And I would remind you, if you have concerns about that we still have the flexibility that goes with termination or renegotiation. If we want more or we want less of something, both parties have the option to bring that up at a future date and renegotiate those items. But right now, 311 is what's proposed for the term.
All right.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Your options, again, remember, we went through this last time. Your options are to vote up or down. Council, for this type of item, does not have the authority to say we'll approve something other than what's presented. Because of the way these items move forward, your option is thumbs up or thumbs down.
All right, I'm going to make a motion to deny these terms as presented today. I think they're unrealistic. I think the challenge of needing this to be approved because of stability is not valid. Stability has always been there, and it hasn't been a question in terms of anybody that I'm aware of who's looked at San Angelo or talked to San Angelo about whether we believe in economic development. There has been a very strong statement about our belief in economic development, and that has not changed. But I also know that, in fact, when we got ready to approve the contract, perhaps last July or August, whenever it was, right, that the work had not been done when it was presented in terms of reevaluating the work expected from that organization. But that doesn't mean that they weren't working hard to deliver economic development. But if we're going to approve a contract, that contract plus all the addendums must be one big conversation, and it wasn't done. I can't support this for combinations of reasons. Number one, we still have not hired a replacement, and the candidates that we have talked to have very strongly said, I want to be a part of that conversation. I don't want to walk into a job and have everything already dictated to me in terms of what it is, the length of the contract, the expectations. If you want me to be hired and be the person who helps direct COSA DC and our economic development team, I need to have a voice in it, and I need to be involved in that process. They all have had ideas. They've all had some things that I think brought light to all of us in that room when we were interviewing them in terms of things we should think about, things that haven't been thought about, opportunities that we have not seen or addressed or looked at. We need the person we hire to be involved in this contract negotiation. With that said, we, the council, voted last year to have a one-year contract. To come back after council voted to have a one-year contract with money attached to it. The only challenge to that contract was, in fact, the addendums attached to it. It's taken us how many months to come up with that addendum? A long time.
It was ready in February
Yeah.
and ready to come to council at the first meeting in March.
So this, my comment, my challenge to this, my denial, is not based off of Michael Looney, and he should not take it as an issue about Michael Looney. It is not. You've worked hard. You put a lot of passion into the job. So don't take this as a vote for or against you. It is not. What it is a opportunity for us to hire somebody and let that somebody have some input. With that said, we're so far down the road already on this 1 year that we gave as our point of view in terms of what the contract should be. I think there can be some other discussions going forward, but that's not what we get to do today. Today, we either vote up or down these terms, and I cannot support these terms. It's so far removed from what council voted for and supported. We can't do that. And it sets us up for our ability to attract somebody to want to come take this job. We can't be doing that. We've already gone through that process of somebody being alienated from wanting to be here because of some of these things that we're talking about today. So I can't. So my motion would be to deny. Do I have a second?
I'll have a second, and I'll tell you why. This contract, when we sent it back, it was a 6-1 vote, and I voted against it at that point for a one-year contract. And there's several topics and things that go through there. What's presented to us today goes all the way out into 2029. I mean, if I read the time frame right, it extends all that way. And it has been many comments from this council and from this board. We don't want to obligate further councils and obligate people beyond what the vision they have there. Because if this was to go through with this 5-6 year extension, it obligates 2, if not a full board coming behind us, new mayors, new people, new staff all the way in this contract. I understand the option of a 30-day out. It's my understanding that's always been in every contract, but traditionally we've gone with a 2-year contract, have we not? Has it always been a 2-year?
No.
There's one other year when it wasn't, I believe.
In fact, I can't remember a time when it's been 1 year except this time.
Okay, so what's the standard term?
2 years.
3-1-1.
It's always been a 3-1-1?
Not always the 1-1, but
Yeah.
usually 3 years.
Okay.
No, it's usually been a 2-year contract, Michael.
I'd be glad to follow up and
If you would.
report that to the board.
Yeah. This isn't, again, this is about not obligating the future people, whether it's somebody new at the chamber office, somebody new in economic development, new board members, council members, new COSA DC members. We can't tie down everybody's hands, and giving them a 30-day window is not really the flexibility we need here. This contract needs to come up and be discussed thoroughly. And that's what happens when you have this contract come forward to council, is a fine. It opens the door for a conversation. We need to have ongoing conversations. We only have one economic development team. That's all we have. And we've got to make sure we're all behind it and all focused and have that open dialogue and conversation. When you have a contract like this, it's just done and over with. That's not right. Economic development, if you ask major corporations, if they're doing their business today like they did 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, most people would say no. They have to adapt to the times and change with the times and make decisions based off of the environment that exists at the time. We need to make sure we have the flexibility and the opportunity to open that conversation, discuss it, and make sure we're all on the same page. It doesn't happen otherwise. And this, again, is not a vote against the team. This is not a vote against the team. This is a vote to ensure that we keep the dialogue open, that we keep the conversation going, and that we have an opportunity to talk about those issues at City Council meeting.
Mayor?
Yes.
May I? I have given this a lot of thought, and what occurred to me are several things. Y'all bear with me. I'm going to give you a little bit of history. When the Development Corporation first came into being, somebody that I know quite well and that I sleep with every night was on the original board of directors of the City of San Angelo Development Corporation, my wife. She was involved in putting this together from its very inception. I had the opportunity to be appointed to the COSA DC board back in 2004 by Councilperson Devin Bates. I served at that point for 7 years, was able to serve as chairman of the board, and also during that same time, I served on the Chamber of Commerce board and had the opportunity to chair the Chamber of Commerce board. Now I've had a second opportunity to serve on the City Council, so I have been able to see this from all three sides. The mayor is correct. We did vote 6-1 to have a one-year term. But what I tell people from time to time, I reserve the right to change my mind. I have changed my mind. I agree with what has come forward here with this 3-1-1. And let me tell you why. I think the stability and the predictability is needed for our business community. It's needed for the perception that we give off to any prospects that may be looking at San Angelo, that may be watching this meeting right now unbeknownst to us. For me, I can support a 3-1-1 because I can look at this from all three sides and see the good that comes from this. So I'm going to take an opposite position of what the mayor has.
Any other comments from council? Tom?
I want to go back in and just, I would rather see this as a 1-1-3. I mean, I think if we go, this takes us all the way out to 28, 29. I would love to, this year's half done, Michael. I mean, this year just needs to be rolled in the next year and then an option for a year after that. would be what I would want, and I have told that to many people in this room, that I think the initial vote, my initial opinion was to go 2 years, and I voted that way when it went 6-1. I didn't agree with the 1 year, but the point was to give them 2 years. It's bounced around back and forth, but I'm going to stick with my second, that it's not argument about the policy, the results, or anything there. They've been outstanding. They do a good job. I just don't see it going all the way out to basically 2029. All right? I don't want to obligate the person will sit in this seat in 2 years beyond decisions I've made. I get that. I understand they're looking for somebody. I don't know if those people have pursued or not pursued or decided to pursue this job because of our behavior, but I think everybody needs to have a voice involved, and I could see it positioned differently. I'm not against business, not against development. I want to see it. We've done well. We're obligating all the money and funds that we said we'd do. I just don't see it going out to 2029.
And remember, today, the vote is up or down on this. It then goes back to Costa DC Board. They can come back with another proposal, which could be inclusive of comments from people today. So this is really a vote up or down to this. It's not about today we don't get a, then put something else out to send it back to Costa DC. Well,
We don't stop any money or funds with what
we
we do
haven't.
today.
We haven't. We got to keep the, but that's what we're doing today. So just keep it in
Give you a
perspective.
little more detail about some of the board's sentiment. They are, Board Member Ceballos in a subcommittee meeting said, how do we get more in touch with council, what their needs and wants are for these issues? At the time, we were talking about another issue. We don't want to be at odds with council. We think we're on the same team, and we want to send things to them that they are ready to approve. I think that reflects the sentiment across that board. They want harmony, unity. They want to see these things together. On the other hand, on this item, they felt like letting it move forward as is was their best recommendation at this time. So they are both trying to work with council, but they're also trying to send you their best recommendation. And as a consensus, their opinion on that was, in February anyway, the 3-1-1. So that's kind of the situation they have, both supportive, wanting to work with you, but also wanting to send you their best recommendation.
You know, in interviewing the candidates that we interviewed, which we had some really strong candidates that we had the opportunity to interview, and consistently what we heard was the following. Your Costa DC board should take a position of supporting the city council's vision and strategy. Their jobs would be to approve or not approve or add to the conversation about the vision and strategy that the city council has. And that was pretty consistent with the people we visited with. They're the community outside of that we interviewed that were from other large cities, and some in Texas, some not in Texas, some from several other different states, consistently said Costa DC and the appointees should be supportive of city council's direction and not try to work against them, because that has created the turmoil, which has not been pleasant, as in fact almost all of the candidates that we talked to had watched the videos, had seen how disruptive those board meetings were, and all commented on it and said, how did Costa DC get to be at such odds against the city council? They're supposed to be supportive. They are appointed by city council. Again, they're entitled to every opinion and conversation that they want to have. At the same point in time, you can't have a city council who approves dollars and budgets doing one thing and Costa DC moving in a different direction. That, again, does not mean people can't have an opinion, an idea, or an addition to that conversation. It has to be about communicating. It has to be about making sure that the challenges that exist are explained and talked to and talked about, so we understand what they are. But again, we need to make sure that a person that we want to hire feels like they have some sort of job. And if we take all of that job away from them by approving a contract and doing all of this, I don't think we're going to get very many candidates. I think our candidate list is going to drop down pretty substantially because they don't want to walk in to an already determined, you don't get to have an idea or input.
Or Mayor, it could go the exact opposite. The candidate may really appreciate having a contract in place so that they don't have to deal with what we've had to deal with up to this point. So,
Well, the ones we've interviewed, Tommy, never said that, and it was never what they said, just so you know.
maybe the next one feels that way. So I would go the other way, Mayor, that says that, you know, I would rather have something in place when I get there and to go to work on economic development.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Could you fill us in on where you are in this recruiting process, please?
We interviewed 4 candidates brought forward by the search firm, a mix of candidates, but none that we're ready to move ahead with at this time. And so another slate of candidates is going to be brought forward.
So the mayor has mentioned several times that we need to keep focused. We need to maintain our focus on having a healthy conversation going forward about the process and how all the pieces fit together. I would offer that there might be missing pieces for some of us sitting here. I am not aware of the process of recruiting, rejecting, or being rejected that has been ongoing. That is not something that we are aware of. I don't want to feel like I'm trying to make a decision with less information than is appropriate. It's a big decision. So I just offer that to the group for consideration.
Remember, again, this is a vote up or down on what's in front of you. That doesn't mean that there can't be other options brought to the table
Correct.
that better address those issues. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. We open it up for public comment. Those in the audience who would like to come forward, please come forward now.
I'm Walt Koenig, President and CEO of the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce, 418 B Street, San Angelo, Texas. As I'm listening to this discussion, I'd like to bring it back to the impact it's having on my team. For going on a year now, I have 2 guys who are working for me who bring their A game every single day. And right now it's apparent to me and to our community that they are pawns in a conflict between 2 boards. Continued discussions around this issue is having a deleterious effect on their psychology. Let me tell you a little bit more about these guys. Many of you may not know this, but they're fathers too. They have families to support. They competently, even in light of the fact that this community is not showing them the kind of support that they deserve in terms of stability of employment, they continue to bring superior results. They continue to bring their A game every day. And I'm amazed at the resilience that they bring in light of the fact that they've gotten so little respect. Now, it was said that this is not a vote against my team. It is a vote against my team. I urge the approval of this contract. And I will note, it's not a threat. Other communities are well aware of the quality of staff we have. Our own difficulties in recruiting a staff member to take the COSA DCED's job speaks volumes to the fact that this particular skill set is in great demand and in very low supply. Other communities will be coming after these guys. For months, through delays of agenda inclusion of this item, this issue's languished. The one-year upvote occurred in the very last council meeting of 2022, and it had been talked about for months prior. So I apologize for my emotion around this, but I work with these guys every single day, and I see the energy, the skill, the passion, and the loyalty that they bring to this situation. And I'm appalled, frankly, with this process. I'm appalled with this position. I'm appalled by this lack of support for two guys who have nothing but the city's interests in mind. Thank you.
Further public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All of those in favor of up or down, yay or nay. So the motion that's on the floor is to deny this terms that have been presented today. So if you don't support this but want to go back and have further discussion, then you say no. If you support these terms, you say yes. Is that clear?
That's the opposite. That's opposite.
So there you go. So the motion on the floor is to deny these terms. So if you vote yes, you're supporting the denial of these terms. Okay? Are we clear? Larry?
No.
Karen?
I'm still a little confused, and I want to make very clear that while I would be willing to send it back for further conversation and discussion, that I fully agree with what Mr. Koenig just said. I understand that very clearly, and that concerns me, deeply concerns me. So I want to make clear to the people in the audience that if I agree with denial, that I am in support of what Mr. Koenig said, that I feel very, very deeply, strongly, hugely how important it is that we retain these key people. So I will agree with denial.
All right. Lucy?
Under those terms.
Yes.
No.
Tom?
Yes.
Brenda Gunter Mayor, yes.
Do I get to vote?
And yes. I'm sorry.
No.
All right. So motion to deny is passed 4-3. It goes back to COSA DC board.
Would you like to give the board advice about what you would be willing to approve?
Tom, I'm going to let you lead that.
So, several discussions, and I've had these with members of COSA DC. I would like to see a one and a, include this into next year with an option to go on, which gets to the end of basically several of us' term here. So it would be basically a 2.5 year. It'd be 1 and then a half with an option for the third.
Any other ideas from council members? Give direction to COSA DC. I would support, we've already approved 1 year, so the 2022-23 is approved. That's done. We will go into negotiations in July or August for 23-24, correct? Correct. So with that, we can then discuss.
We're already in the 24 fiscal year. Have we not done this yet?
So it's half of 23, throw 24 in with 23, and then an option for 25. Is the one that I was talking about. So 23 and 24 together, option for 25, and then that finishes out basically my term.
If all goes well, we will have somebody on board at that point in time. And again, I want to make sure, because council supports, Michael, you know it. You're smiling, you know you have the support. That's not the question. And whenever you've made phone calls to anyone sitting up here, or you've met with anyone sitting up here, they have opened the door and the conversation to give you advice and support. I don't believe you have any concerns about how much you are valued by this organization. And again, this isn't about you. This is about how we set ourselves up for the future, period. It's not about personnel. Okay?
Mayor, I would
Yes.
like to see at a minimum a 3-year contract. No, at this point, let's keep this simple. Let's keep it clean. 3-year contract, which has been more often than not in my memory and my involvement, we've operated on a 3-year contract. That's what I would like to see at a minimum. Well, if we're using years, this is good through the end of 23. I would say 24, 25, 26, contract expires 12/31/26. 3-year contract beginning next January 1st.
So we have two options. You have the one Tom presented, which would be a 2-year extension, starting with the new negotiations on the new budget, with a 1-year extension on it. Is that correct, Tom? Yes.
Mine got you 23 and 24 is one, and then which is actually 1.5, and then it throws in the next year, which gets you to the end of 25.
That's correct.
Well, Tom's then is a 1+1.
Yes.
And Tommy's is a
Simple 3.
+3.
So you've got those two options to take back to COSA-DC Board to discuss, but there is nobody on this council today who doesn't support the staff of COSA-DC.
I want to get clear on Tommy's timeline on yours.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if I knew exactly when yours, are you proposing through the end of 25 or the end of 26?
End of 26 is my proposal.
Which will obligate new city council members to a 1-year contract. Basically is what it says. Because in 25, you'll have an election for Larry, me, Lucy, and Tom. So they would go, whoever gets elected, because Tom's termed out, I'm termed out, Lucy's termed out. So you basically would give a new council 1 year to look at, talk through, understand, and then learn. And again, we hope to have some new leadership at that point. And so you've heard options.
I think they're going to want to know, because what Tommy has talked about is substantially consistent with what was before you today. It was a 3-1-1, and if you wanted 3 and wanted to change something, you didn't have to approve the 1-1s. So I think they're going to be confused if I come back with a council either wants a 1+1 or a +3, because what we've got here is essentially a +3, +1, subject to approval. And so I think if you're not willing to go with the +3 today, why would you in the future?
Well taken. All right.
But I think it needs a full review every 2 or 3 years.
It has to be.
The extensions is kind of what gets me on this. Before, it wasn't, but the extensions it just rolls on. I think with anything most people do, you're going to bring it and look at it. I mean, whether there's contracts that I have done personally with associations I've worked for, very seldom did we go past 1 or 2. And very, on few occasions we get 3. I think they just need to be looked at. And if everything looks good, it's no more than a simple, hey, we're bringing back the same contract.
Yeah.
Is everybody good with this one? But there's a force to look at it and review it. And that allows everybody to have input.
And this really, and remember, and this is a key point, we're not discussing whether there's going to be financial support for economic development. Just as we did this year, there was no question whatsoever about committing to the dollars. We said, commit to the dollars, and next time the contract that comes back has to have the addendums appropriate for that contract. They weren't. They weren't even looked at before the contract came forward. That was wrong. It's just taken a very long time to get these things put back in order. But there's not a lack of support, and that's the message from today's meeting. There is support for economic development. There's support for the economic development team. But we want to have back for an opportunity to review and discuss. You know, most people in their jobs don't have contracts. You know what? People go to work every day believing if I do the best I know, if I give the most I can, I don't have to worry about whether I have a job or not. And we're committing to basically saying, this isn't about the team. This is about having a council who has an opportunity to review, but also to have who they will be working with going forward have an opportunity for review. It is not a vote against the team at all. And that's got to be clear. All right, thank you. That concludes the agenda today, so we'll move, there's no closed session, so we'll move into the follow-up and administrative issues. Since there was nothing in executive session, are there any announcements in consideration for future agenda items? Seeing none, may I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll move.
Second.
Lots of seconds, so let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Meeting is officially adjourned
Next
at
meeting?
10:17 a.m. of May.